Hi, this is a one-cut video. I'm not going for an Academy Award, so bear with me. I'm not going to edit this or anything. This is just a one-off. This video is intended for people new to Android, especially people coming from iPhone who are power users or jailbreakers on iPhone, but pretty much anybody that wants some tips or tricks or whatever on some neat ways to set the phone up. One thing about Android is that it's very configurable. Jelly Bean, the reason I switched to it from iPhone is I thought Ice Cream Sandwich and Jelly Bean versions of Android had matured enough to the point where they are more competitive with iOS than they are. And so this is just going to show you some things I've done, but everybody has their own personal preferences. So take what you like and forget what you don't. One thing you'll notice here is on my lock screen here, it's pretty minimalistic, and that's kind of a philosophy type of thing. I don't like a lot of stuff on my lock screen that isn't important, and so that's the way I've set this phone up. So when you get this phone, one thing you really want to do is you need to install a program called Widget Locker. It gives you much more flexibility on what goes on your lock screen, and some people are more security sensitive than others. They don't want stuff on their lock screen. They want to have to unlock their phone, type in a pin. I'm one that I don't have anything to hide. I like important stuff on my lock screen, and this is how I operate. So you install Widget Locker, and one of the first things you want to do with Widget Locker is you want to, let's see here, you want to change the layout. Whoops, a little. Here we go. Here we are under Look and Feel. You want to change the layout to a 6x6 grid or whatever you want. The automatic one is not a very big grid, and that's a problem on the iPhone and on the stock Android, is that they put too much spacing, in my opinion, between the icons, so you can't get a whole lot on the screen, and you end up creating more pages of icons than you need. So once you have Widget Locker installed, I've chosen this is a slider widget or whatever you add on Widget Locker, and this is the Sense 3 style one choice, and it's the only one that gives you 6 docked apps, so to speak, on there. Anything else, even if I have a 6x6 grid configured, if I try to add app icons to the lock screen, it's still going to only allow me to do 4. And this is kind of a cool Sense 3 style. You can either drag the app into the thing to launch that particular app, or you can just slide this thing up to unlock the phone. The other thing you'll notice is I don't have a big clock on my lock screen, and that's another personal preference. I was using an HTC touchscreen device years ago, right before I switched to an iPhone 3, and it was, I remember that big white flipboard style clock, and it kind of cracks me up those are still popular today, because all these phones, the time is the clock's up in the right corner, and this one on this phone is a pretty good size one. But you know, it's your own personal preference if you want to have a gigantic clock on your lock screen. This first widget I have on top here is called Pure Calendar Widget, and I spent hours and hours and hours going through apps and widgets and settings to come up with this combination. And this widget, I have it configured with a transparent background. It only shows calendar and reminders. It shows me the current date, and it shows each one on one line with the date. So it's not like date on one line, then that, and then date and date. So it doesn't take that much screen space, even though the widget goes down to about here. So if there was like 4 or 5 events, I would see them all. So that's Pure Calendar Widget that you can add to your lock screen if you're running Widget Locker. The next widget I have is called Missed It, and even though you can see there's unread count on my SMS of 1 down there, I like to have it be a little bit more conspicuous. So again, this is transparent, and it's also on Missed It. I've also configured the widget to only show if there is a missed message. So it won't show 0 unread messages, 0 unread emails, 0 whatever. It only will show it if there is something. Otherwise, it will be invisible. If I click on that, it opens up the message. Also, you have to install something called Tesla, T-E-S-L-A, unread count, to get these counts to show up on the Widget Locker icons, and then enable Tesla unread count within the Widget Locker. What else about the screen? Oh, another thing I did on this is under Widget Locker, you can configure it to unlock the phone just by pressing the home button, which is nice. The slide is not a big deal, but I like to be able to I can wake the phone up and unlock it just by pressing the home button once and then twice. And one thing nice about that too is, since I don't have a passcode, I can actually start S-Voice with a double press from the lock screen, where normally, oh, didn't do it there, let's try it again. Oops, little problem. Okay, so you go from the lock screen, it can do a double press and you get S-Voice, which is kind of nice. So you don't have to unlock the phone to get to double S-Voice. You can activate S-Voice with your voice from the lock screen, but that means the phone's using the mic to listen to you all the time, so it's going to drain your battery. The other thing you want to install is, I consider a must-have, is called the Nova launcher, and that just basically is Widget Locker, but for what you're called your home screen. So it gives you much more flexibility over configuring your home screen. I've used here Android Weathers widget. It was the best weather widget I could find. That was a one height row widget. For my news, I went through all of them. I'm using Tap2, really configurable. You can really get the feed that you want in there. You click through to see all your channels, etc. Again, on Nova, I've changed the grid to a 5x6, I think it's set at, so you can get more icons on it. And you can also, with Nova, you can slide this down here to your other most used icons, etc. What else? Another thing is reminders, and this is something iPhone just got recently, but for this you need an app, and it comes from the developers assuming that you have your phone pretty much glued to your head 24/7, and I don't. I will leave my phone in my office and be in the dining room for hours, or sometimes just want to take a break from my phone and run to the grocery store real quick and just not want to be bothered or whatever. I don't do it a lot, but sometimes. And I found when I was initially using the iPhone, and it will happen with this phone, is that if you miss that text message, or you miss that email, you miss that call or voicemail, you won't know about it if you come back to your phone an hour later. On this phone, it's actually better because it's got a really bright blinking LED, but on other phones, it's not as obvious. So I've installed two apps on here. One's called let's see. One's called Calendar Snooze, and this will basically give you notification settings, and it will allow you to set up reminders for your calendar. So if you get a calendar, see that right there is reminding me of a text message that came through. That will do it for your calendars, Calendar Snooze, to give you repeat notifications on calendars in case a new calendar event popped up and you didn't have your phone by you. The other one, let's see if we can find it here, is missed call reminder. This one will do, I believe, missed calls, let's see, and it will do unread SMS. I'm using GoSMSPro, and I'm using the reminder option in that, so I have it turned off in this. But if you want a chime, etc., to happen every 15 minutes for the next 2 hours on missed calls, it's very configurable. You need an app like Missed Calls. So that's how we achieve those reminder chimes and stuff, in case you weren't by your phone when something came through, and you're not constantly looking at your phone every 10 minutes to see what's new. The other thing is, one of the big problems with this, and I wouldn't say big problem, one of the differences between Android and iPhone is that most of these high-powered, top-of-the-line smartphones for Android seem to have can be battery hogs, because there's so many apps, and the Google Play Store is not as tightly controlled as the Apple Store. There's quite a few apps you can download that can eat your battery. So you'll find, and because iPhone's so controlled, the OS is so optimized to use as little battery as possible. most smartphone Android users will do some sort of battery usage tweaking. And the two best apps I can recommend is one called, let's go back to the apps here. It's called GSam Battery Monitor. It used to be Badass Battery Monitor or whatever. The cool thing about that is, if you can see up in the upper right corner, you can actually configure it to replace your stock battery monitor. One thing nice about TouchWiz is you can get your battery percentage in addition to the icon. This one's a little more efficient because it puts it all in one little thing, and I've got it basically hiding the battery icon from TouchWiz up there. But the more important thing is this app has a ton of information, and you can really see what's going on with your battery. I won't go into it, but it's amazing. It will. If I go into app usage here, it can show me what apps have been using up the battery. It can give you an estimate, and it says last 13 minutes. If I keep using my phone the way I did the last 13 minutes, I've got 8 hours and 41 minutes left. It'll tell you how much time to charge, till it's fully charged, when it's charging, etc. Highly recommended for monitoring battery and troubleshooting your battery, at least initially when you get your phone and you get all your apps installed. The other battery one I'd say you want to look at is called Carat, and it's not a very polished interface. It's a Berkley University project, and it basically, the thing about Carat is it sends information to a database so you can compare to other phones, and they can give you recommendations. And the main thing in Carat is the hogs icon. It'll say these apps you have could be hogs. Right now I don't have any, but Carat's another good one to use. Let's see, the other must-have app I'd say is Android Task Manager, and that's right here. It shows you all the tasks running, but more importantly, on this one, if you really want to troubleshoot what's eating your battery, you want to go into Settings, and you want to go into this on Task Manager, the Preferences, Show System Process. Make sure that's checked, so that then when you're on the app and you click down here and you go Real-Time Processes, it shows you the real-time, sorted by CPU, what's taking up the CPU. And right now the biggest one is this real-time process monitor and G-tasks. So, but it will show you system processes you normally wouldn't see. So that's a must-have if you're trying to troubleshoot what's really eating up your CPU and making your phone hot, etc. Let's see. The other thing I have on this thing is called, if you're trying to troubleshoot your Wi-Fi, is called, it's a Wi-Fi Signal Widget Pro. And what that does is it puts this, gives me a real-time Wi-Fi signal indication up there. That's another one I get. The last one I would mention, there's so much stuff, it's amazing, is this program called Llama. L-L-A-M-A, and what it does is it allows you to have profiles for your sound, but more importantly, areas. It can learn what area your home is from the cell tower signals, your work, etc. And so then you can set up events. Like for instance, I've set up an event when the battery goes below 20%, disable the account sync, disable Bluetooth, and disable GPS. Or when I'm leaving my home and the battery is above 70%, enable the GPS. So much you can do here. There's another program called Tasker, which is even more powerful. Tasker is more of a coder type application. This one's a little bit easier but not as flexible, but definitely if you want to get really fancy with your device doing stuff depending on states of the battery, where it's at, I definitely recommend Llama. I could go on and on and on, but that's how I've had this phone set up here. So you can see, if you like this kind of style, maybe some of these tips will help you get the same type of phone set up for your device.